Hello, everyone. I'm attorney Justin Lovely. I'm here with my wife and my law partner, attorney Amy Lawrence. And this is another episode of the video and podcast, The Carolina Justice Report. We're glad to be coming back at you again from our studios here in fabulous Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where the weather is getting colder. On a more serious note, we're going to talk to you about a serious topic today, and that's going to be something that should never be happening in society, but unfortunately, there are cases that we handle in our office. We help survivors of sexual assault cases.
Yeah, this is the ones that are near and dear to our hearts. These are the victims of sexual assault. We handle cases in our office where women and children and men have been abused at college universities, by entities, and by entities I mean the police department, fire departments. We handle cases where women have been assaulted with Lyft and with Uber drivers. I mean, we pretty much handle the gamut. And even if there's not a civil case, we still help. And one of the things I do, and it's really like a victim's advocate position that we take, is we kind of hold your hand through the process and help you get the counseling that you need to be able to be better and to work through the process, and also like help with the criminal action if there is a criminal action. And I think that just that hand holding and having someone by your side to help advocate for you and be your voice is always helpful.
Yeah, well, let's back up. That's a lot. Let's back up and unpack some of this. So
yeah.
These are some cases that people don't understand that they even have causes of action. And she just mentioned Uber and Lyft cases. And these large corporations try to hide this. If you Google, you can read all the stats that have just recently been released by their own internal investigative reports. It's mind-boggling. It's insanity. And basically what's happening is they're not performing background checks on these drivers. These drivers may be picking up, young women or even young men who are drunk or intoxicated, trying to do the right thing, not drink and drive. They call Uber or Lyft on their cell phones. They arrange for a ride. The driver, who's a bad actor, realizes that they are inebriated and takes advantage of them. And they've been quietly settling these cases without it really coming out in the news or anything like that. But their own internal investigative reports just recently been released, and the numbers are just crazy.
With Myrtle Beach, especially on the coast, we're in a tourist situation, and we have tons of Ubers and Lyfts, and we're seeing an uptick in these cases. And it's scary as hell, to be quite honest. We think we're doing the right thing. We call an Uber. We're getting a ride home. We're a woman. We're alone. And, before we know it, we find ourselves being victims of sexual assault. And that's just unnecessary, uncalled for, and completely preventable. And what we're seeing is that Uber and Lyft is not doing these background checks. They're worried about whether or not you had a traffic ticket, but they're not worried about if you're a sexual predator. And that's where we step in and help.
Right, and we handle these cases nationwide, not just in South Carolina. So if this has happened to you or a loved one anywhere in the United States, we'll be glad to talk to you. These are rising to the level of mass action, not just single event cases, which is sad. But the bad acts of Lyft and corporate Uber, they need to be held accountable, and that's something that we help you do at the Lovely Law Firm.
Yeah, what I always tell our clients is I can't put Uber and Lyft in jail. The only thing we can do is to sue them and hit them in the pocketbook, and if we hit them enough, then they'll change their ways. Because Maya Angelou always says, when you know better, you do better, and they've known better and they're not doing better. So we've got to hurt them. Change only comes through adversity, and adversity means it's got to hurt. And so how we do that is we hit them in the pocketbook, and if we hit them enough, they'll change their ways and start doing better.
Now, another area, Amy, that you've handled are cases, and this is maybe another shock to the public and our listeners and our viewers, but doctors' offices and medical practices. Touch on that a little bit.
Yeah. We're also seeing a rise, and I think that it's not actually we're seeing a rise in it. I think we're seeing a rise in the reporting of it. As women, we're taught to be polite, to go along with whatever, not to buck the system. And, if we haven't gotten anything out of the Me Too movement, is that we have a voice and that we can say this isn't okay. And so it's not that we're really seeing an uptick in the numbers of the cases that are happening, because I think they've been happening, forever. I just think that women feel more comfortable with reporting it now. And so what we're seeing is doctors who are sexually assaulting women. We look at the Nassif case with the gymnast. That's a prime example. This man was not a gynecologist. He was like a physical therapist and a rehab doctor, and he was assaulting women and young girls. And this is not something that's specific to gymnastics. We're seeing it across the board. We're seeing it at, in universities. We've seen this around there. We've seen it with plastic surgeons giving breast exams when no one's getting breast work. It's crazy and it's awful, and we're willing to stand up and fight for you.
And so when we're investigating these cases, obviously Amy will hold your hand and our whole team holds your hand through the whole process. But we're going after the bad actor, and in the case of a doctor's office, it would be the doctor personally, but also the practice group. And usually where there's smoke, there's fire. And when we start investigating, there's other, at least claims, it may not have been lawsuits, but that can bring up some punitive exposure that we're able to attack and get a good recovery for you to try to make you as whole as possible. Now, you mentioned institutions, and there was just a big case, and we have several of these cases against, like, the Boy Scouts. That was a big one in the news recently. Unfortunately, the Boy Scouts sought bankruptcy protection, and that's one of the things we wanted to kind of discuss is when these big institutions, if it's a university, she said, or if it's a doctor's office, a big group, when they realize there's all these mass actions where it wasn't just one person, it was not an isolated event, this was a pattern of abuse that's finally being exposed, these people run to the bankruptcy courts for protection. And we continue to represent you and help you with your claim through the bankruptcy trust or whatever may be set up. And that's kind of what's been going on with the Boy Scout cases and the ones that we've handled.
Yeah, we've handled quite a bit of the Boy Scout cases, and that's one of the things that just drives me up the wall and keeps me up at night, makes my neck turn red. When we see these entities and they run to bankruptcy and it's their safe haven. And we help fight against that bankruptcy as well. And even if it goes through, we fight to get them every nickel we can and hold them accountable.
Now, one aspect of the law that is bad in South Carolina is obviously and very harsh to a victim or a survivor is our statute of limitations. Other states, and this is a trend going around the United States right now, but New York kind of set the precedent where they did a look-back law with their Child Victims Act. And what that did was it allowed a short window of time for survivors to bring claims that may have happened 30 years ago. Now, South Carolina, we're still behind in the times, but I think pressure on our legislature, they may join the trend and open those statutes of limitations for civil cases back up to allow people who may realize they've come to realize this as they've gotten older, and they realize how their life has been ruined or affected, and they're able to bring a case against the wrongdoer in court. Again, we're kind of behind in the times down here in South Carolina. We seem to always be, the last to act when laws start to change across the United States. But we are seeing those, and several states have enacted legislative procedures just like that.
One of the we actually get a lot of calls from people from up north, and a great example of that is the Catholic Church. Children were being abused by the thousands, and they knew about it and they covered it up. And when they opened up the statute of limitations in New York, it was to all sexual assault cases. But we got a lot of calls from men and women who were abused by priests, and we were able to help them in their cases up in New York and place those with our trusted attorneys up there to be able to hold the church accountable and to help give them a voice, because what happened to them wasn't okay. They're okay, and they're going to be okay, but what happened to them wasn't okay. And just somebody being able to give them that voice that said, what happened to you was horrific and awful, and that should have never happened. And sometimes that's what people need. They need the reassurance that that wasn't okay.
And that's a great point. We're a very transient town down here in Myrtle Beach and Charleston, the whole coast. And we get a lot of retirees that come down here. But that may not be where you were assaulted. Yeah. So you still may have a claim in your home state, and we'll be able to vet that for you. So if this is happening to you, you living down here in the coast and you're watching this or listening to this, reach out to us. We talk to you. We don't charge you anything to talk to you. And we let you know if it's something that we can help you with. And like she spoke of earlier, many times there's not a civil case, okay? Yeah. But we can still be your advocate. We can still hold your hand and help you whatever that is. If that looks like helping you get counseling, if that's just letting us hear your story. I mean, we're here for you. Our whole team is trained on sexual assault cases. We know how to handle them from start to finish if we have to go all the way to a jury trial.
Yeah. Yeah, I do a lot of my pro bono work with the Rape Crisis Center. And and it's not about a civil case there. It's usually just about helping women and men and children and helping them, give them their voice in the system, and that way it doesn't get drowned out or lost somewhere along the way.
Now, we'd like for you to hear from one of our clients who is a very, very strong survivor. An awesome story that she lived, and she was able to get a recovery. So let's take a look.
I don't take cases where people hurt women, children, old people, or animals. That's where my heart is the protection of women and children. So several women reached out to me because of the work I do in this community. And one of those women that told me their story was Erin. And Erin had been a victim of sexual assault almost immediately. It was not investigated, just arbitrarily closed. And the officer that was tasked to do this case, to investigate her sexual assault, ended up re-victimizing her.
When I first met Amy, I couldn't trust anybody. The people that I was supposed to trust the most were the ones that failed me the most.
The amount of shame that we put on women. What was she wearing? You know, we hear that. And we don't just hear that from, the comments on Facebook. We hear it from judges. We hear it from police officers. And that is not our shame to carry.
It made my life miserable. When Amy found out about it, she took it head on.
And we started investigating her case, and we realized that she was one of many. And so we had to hold them accountable, because you can't just let stuff like this happen.
And we nailed it.
People always joke around, they're like, I bet cops hate you. And good cops love me. I'm their favorite person in the whole wide world. Bad cops, on the other hand, despise me.
Now that I've been able to use Amy and her law firm, I'm at a good place in life.
And that's the most rewarding part, is watching these survivors, the process that they go through, and come out the other side okay.
When you don't even know if you're coming or going at times, you don't know where to begin, but when you can get somebody like Amy and her law firm involved into something so serious that's going on in your life, it brings a lot of closure.
You will survive this, and I'm going to be with you every step of the way.
We hate to use the word victim in our office. We like to use the word survivor and warrior, and that's exactly what Erin is, and we are so proud that we got to help her in her healing process.
And listen, if this has happened to you, these are very delicate, very strong, very sensitive cases. We're here to help you. We want you to know that. So this has been the Carolina Justice Report. I'm Attorney Justin Lovely. This is Attorney Amy Lawrence. We'll see you next time.